Okay, so once again, you are all welcome to Cisco Cybersecurity Essentials class. Today's class, we are going to be looking at Chapter 1 that talks about a world of experts and criminals. Okay, we're going to be looking at a world of experts and criminals. Now, in this course, it has different chapters. It has about 8 chapters, and chapter 1 is talking about a world of experts and criminals. That is what we are going to be looking at today. Chapter 2 is talking about the cybersecurity cube. Okay, and then chapter 3 is talking about cybersecurity threats, vulnerabilities, and attacks. Then chapter 4 is talking about the art of protecting secrets. Then chapter 5 is talking about protecting a cybersecurity domain. Now, I'd like to say here that for those of you who have attended or who have taken the introduction to cybersecurity class, you would have an upper hand to discuss because you probably must have gotten the basic idea on cybersecurity. But even if you have not taken the introduction to cybersecurity course, I believe that if you pay more attention and do a lot of the activities, you would be able to scale through. All right, so let's go right into what we have for today. And we are looking at a world of a world of experts and criminals. Now, what are we actually looking at here? We are saying that there are many data groups in the world that makes up different domains or makes up different cyber worlds. Now, the world is going into a lot of data mining or data analysis because we harvest a lot of information of users. There are different companies, different organizations that what they do is they do a lot of data harvest based on the services they render. And so these particular companies or these particular groups, we call them domains because of the size of information and data flow they have and they control. Companies like Google, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, could be compared to be data domains in our cyber world. All right, expanding it further because the kind of work they do has to do with a lot of data collection and data harvest. All right. Now, we tend to find out what is this word domain. When we talk about domain, what are we talking about? Domain is just like an area of control. All right. An area of coverage or an area of control. So when you have a particular kind of data or a particular kind of resources, or a particular kind of information that is within a particular area, within a particular jurisdiction of a particular control. That's what we call domain. All right. And we are looking at these 3 major companies, not because they are the only domain there exists, but the kind of information they take in. For instance, Google, we know that Google take in so much, Facebook as well as LinkedIn, all of them take. So they are the examples that we are going to be looking at when it comes to the examples of data domain. So Facebook, for instance, is a powerful domain within the broader internet. Okay, is a powerful domain within the broader internet. Let me zoom this for you to see. Okay. All right. So we say experts at Google created one of the first and most powerful domains within the broader cyber world of the internet. Billions of people use Google to search the web every day. Google has arguably created the world's largest data collection infrastructure. And that is because of the kind of services that they offer. They have developed the Android phone, the Android OS, which is installed in 80% of the mobile devices today that are connected to the internet. All right, so each of these devices requires you to create a Google account, and they have access to your bookmarks, they have access to the mails that you create, the access to the correspondence that you make. You know, even educational resources now are on Google, like we have the Google Online Classroom and things like that. So they store a lot of such results. They store a lot of information that has to do with Google. For instance, let me show you some of the services that Google offers. They have a lot of products, like the browser. First of all, Google Documents. You know, they have Google Documents, and this document has to do with you creating information online. Okay, and then they have company announcements. They do Google Maps. Google Maps. They now created Google Android. Then you have Google Education, where people do online classrooms. Then you have the Google search engine. All right, and so much and so forth. They have so many applications that people are using on a day-to-day activities every day. And what they are using this for basically is for communication. And so, because this kind of traffic, this kind of information is passing through their company, they have it's within their domain. They have access to this particular information. Facebook is another powerful domain within the broader internet. The experts at Facebook recognize that people create personal documents every day and communicate with families and friends on a daily basis. Now, let me show you something. If you want to know the statistics of the number of people that use Facebook every now and then, just Google it. For instance, now, let's say statistics, Facebook usage statistics. Let's look at 2020 statistics and let's just see. All right, so this is just like what we have. Now, let's see these statistics that we have here. Now, for instance, if you look at these statistics, it is telling us an average. I'm coming. Let me get. All right, this is what I'm looking for. All right. Okay. All right. Now, look at this. As at 2020, you have about 1.69 billion Facebook users. 1.69 billion Facebook users. This is like a country on its own. All right, it's like a country on its own, and you can even check out the kind of information and how people use it on a daily basis just by coming to this particular page. So if I come here and it tells me show statistics information, they require me to pay to get it. But the point is that you can Google as much as possible as you want. It will give you the kind of information that flows only on Facebook. How frequent, the category of people that uses this Facebook and what they use it for. All right, how much money you think people make on Facebook, on social media. So because of that, that's another very, very big data domain, right? So you see, when it comes to cybersecurity, the gold here, the value here is access to information. So we are looking at these domains, these categories of companies' information that control a lot of data information. There are so many other. LinkedIn is another domain on the internet. The experts at LinkedIn recognize that their members would share information about where they are looking for a job. their professional expertise, and anytime they're looking for a job, they go to LinkedIn. They place in their qualification, place in their professional expertise, place in their skills and things like that. And a lot of people posted this particular information, and it's worldwide. So the point here is that if we have this size or quantum of information that is out there, who manages it? And how secure is this information as we place it? Now, what about the growth of the cyber domains that we're looking at? Data collected within the internet is considerably more than the data that the users contribute voluntarily. So cyber domains continue to grow as science and technology evolve, enabling the experts and their employers to collect many other forms of data. So there are organizations that when they are collecting or harvesting your information or your data, they tell you that their data cannot be used to be sold. Or they tell you that their data or your data that you are submitting will not be shared with any other person without your consent. Well, these are some of the things that we are going to be looking at. So we are saying that new technologies such as geospatial information systems and the Internet of Things have emerged. These new technologies can track the health of trees in a neighborhood. They can provide up-to-date locations of vehicles, devices, individuals, and materials. This type of information can save energy, improve efficiency, and reduce safety risk. Now, we are saying that these new technologies that are evolving are going to collect even more data than we have imagined. Now, imagine that I have a watch that is a digital watch whereby it's connected to the internet. Imagine I have a shoe that connects to the internet that keeps track of the exercise I have made. Imagine I have a device within me that keeps my health status up to date, especially with regards to my hospital. Imagine in my home, I have an AC that is connected to the network. Imagine I have in my home a car that is connected to the network. Everything that I have is connected to the network or to the internet. So what it means is that the kind of data that is being generated on a day-to-day is going to be very, very high. And because of this high volume of data that is being generated from these new technologies we have, I have my phone, and as I move with my phone every day, it keeps track of my location, where I go, how long I spend in those locations, what I do, and things like that. So a lot of data is being staked out there for management. So because of that, there are people who are called cyber criminals that want to gain access to this particular information for whatever reason. Their reasons might be good, their intentions might be good. Some of them, their intentions might be terribly bad. Some of them, they might start with a good intention, but might end up with a very, very bad skills. So now let's look at, in the early years of cybersecurity world, the typical cyber criminals are teenagers or hobbyists operating from computers, with attacks mostly limited to pranks and vandalism. So they just test their technical capabilities. Okay, let me just test how good I am, and let me try, can I penetrate this, can I penetrate this? So these are just youngsters who are just trying to explore their capabilities based on the technical things they have. Now we call them amateurs. So the amateurs or script kiddies have little or no skills, often using existing tools or instructions found on the internet to launch attack. Some are just curious, while others try to demonstrate their skills and cause harm. They may be using basic tools, but the result can still be devastating. So we are saying that this category of hackers, or this category of persons, like we said, they are just trying to polish their skills, their clocks, All right, they go on the internet, they want to find out how to do this, they gather the information and they come to make it a trial. All right, so in most cases, they do not have a particular agenda apart from trying to gain access to certain unauthorized resources. Okay, they don't have some particular agenda. Now, hackers, this group of criminals, break into computers or network to gain access for various reasons. So you see, the amateurs are basically trying to explore. Okay, they're basically trying to explore. But the hackers, in this case, they have their own reasons. The intent of their breaking determines the classification of what type of hackers they belong. We basically have three. We have the white hacker, we have the gray hacker, and we have the black hat hackers. Okay, and so the reasons for hacking, the hacking basically means gaining access to unauthorized resources without permission. That's especially when you hack, you gain access to a particular resource. So whether you gain access to it with permission or without permission, that is what is going to determine the category of hacking that you belong. All right. So white hat hackers break into networks or computer systems to discover the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in those particular systems or in those particular organizations, basically to improve the systems that those companies or organizations have. So it is like trying to say, I have built a security in my house. Then I go and then I employ a services of a thief. And I tell the thief, okay, if you can come into my house and steal my television, I'm going to pay you 500,000. So you see, I am trying to now test the capability of the security I have placed in my house. So I now tell a thief to come. So if that particular thief is able to come into the house and steal the television, then I know that I have vulnerabilities. The thief will now inform me, okay, this is how and the ways I was able to get into your house to steal your property. So the white hat hackers are basically what we call ethical hackers. They are people that actually are being consulted to gain access into these particular resources. All right. But the aim is basically to improve the security vulnerability of that particular organization. On the other hand, the black hat hackers take advantage of any vulnerability for illegal, personal, financial, or political gain. So you see, this set of people also gain access to the resources, but this time around for political gain or financial gain. That means they gain access to these particular resources without the consent of the owner of those resources or organization. And they cause mayhem, they cause damage to this particular organization. So either by releasing some confidential information, or by taking your system ransom, or by gaining some information to sell out in the black market, or whatever it is. All right. So the difference between the white hat hackers and the black hat hackers is just that the motive in which they do it is different. So the motive for the white hat hackers is basically to improve the security vulnerability features of that organization. Whereas that of the black hat hackers, the motive is to gain personal, financial, or political gain as regards that particular organization. Now, the gray hat hackers are somewhat in between the two. All right. So they actually find the vulnerabilities and report it to the owners of the system if the action coincides with their agenda. But some gray hat hackers publish the facts about the vulnerability to the internet so that other hackers can exploit it. So like when we pick a color that is gray, a gray is neither black nor white. It is somewhere in between. So it means that this individual actually have go into this for good reasons, but if they particularly discover an opportunity to make business, all right, or to satisfy their personal gain, then they now go to the black hat hackers. Now, organized hackers are criminals that include organizations of cyber criminals, hacktivists, terrorists, and state-sponsored hackers. Cyber criminals are usually a group of professional criminals focused on control, power, and wealth. These criminals are highly sophisticated and very, very organized, especially in how they carry out their criminal activities. Activists make political statements to create awareness to the issues that are important to them. All right. So most political aspirants make use of these particular people. So they publicly publish embarrassing information about criminals. I am sure if you remember during the last election of the United States, there was a particular case that has been going on for a very long time, and it falls within this particular group of people. So state-sponsored hackers gathered intelligence or commit sabotage on behalf of their government. So these attackers are usually highly trained and well funded. Their attacks focus on specific goals that are beneficial to their government. So some states actually sponsor these attacks, and even they sponsor these attacks so that they can cause mayhem to other states or other governments, and things like that. So these are the category of people we call organized hackers. So they are either hacktivists or terrorists or state-sponsored attackers. But their aim, their malicious gain or their malicious aim is basically to cause mayhem. Now, what is their motive? Cyber criminals' profiles and motives have changed over the years. So hacking started in the 60s with phone phreaking, which refers to using various audio frequencies to manipulate phone systems. But in the 80s, this particular motive now changed. And when it changed, they use computers like dial-up modems to connect to remote computers to break in passwords of users. So criminals can now use malware and viruses in high-tech weapons to cause mayhem, especially in the military. So, however, the greatest motivation of most cyber criminals is money, is financial motive. All right. So most of these people become cyber criminals because they need money, either for illicit drugs or for trade and things like that. So the point is that look at this chart that we have here, for instance. All right. So you have script kiddies, you have vulnerability brokers, you have hacktivists, you have cyber criminals, you have state sponsored. And all of these people are what? They are hackers. All right. Script kiddies, like we said, they are like most of them are amateurs. If you come to vulnerability brokers, we said these are usually gray hat hackers, all right, who attempt to discover exploits and report them to vendors, and sometimes for prizes or for rewards. Okay. Now, hacktivists, we said we've talked about who they are, all right, and so on and so forth. So the next thing we are going to be looking at is, why do you need to become a cybersecurity specialist? Why do you need to be taking this particular course? All right. The first thing is that there's high earning potentials. All right. High earning potential. The demand for the courses are high. Demand for people who are cybersecurity experts are high. Skill level required for an effective cybersecurity specialist and other outages of qualified cyber professionals translates to high earning potentials. Okay, whether in the bank, whether in the government, whether in the private sectors, wherever it is, all right, in the security agencies and so on and so forth. So information technology is constantly changing. So this is also true for cybersecurity. So the highly dynamic nature of the cybersecurity fields can be challenging and fascinating. All right. A cybersecurity specialist career is also highly probable. Job exists in almost every geographic location. All right. So the cybersecurity specialists provide a necessary service to their organizations, countries, societies, so that they can be able to secure themselves. So we have high earning, all right, potential. Then we have challenging career, we have highly probable career, and we have service to the public. So these are some of the reasons or benefits that you can do to um, when we take cyber security. Now, what are some of the measures to thwart cyber security criminals? All right, the first we're going to looking at is vulnerability database. So the National Common Vulnerability and Exposures, that's the CVE database, is an example of development of national database. The CVE national database was developed to provide a publicly available database of all known vulnerability. All right. So, and that vulnerability is that database helps us to be able to identify some of these vulnerabilities. Now let's check it out and see the vulnerability database. Now look at it. These are the current um, distribution of all vulnerabilities. All right. So if I pick this for instance, it will give you all the vulnerabilities that have been documented, where it happened, how it happened, what resulted to it, and things like that. You see all these reports. These are all the reports that were taken and how it happened. Okay, so as a cybersecurity expert, if you come to this particular vulnerability, you'll be able to know how to even protect your devices if you see how it has affected other people. All right, you can come by vendors, you can now check it by products, you can check it, so you can decide to check devices and product. So you can search, let's search maybe Cisco and see whether we will see any vulnerability that comes from them. All right, so we have Cisco and Juniper. If we check the Cisco, the product, what is the vulnerability statistics and what has been done in order to fix it and things like that. So here, building this particular vulnerability database is basically to help experts to know how best to protect themselves by observing what happened to other persons. All right. Then we have early warning. The HoneyNet project is an example of creating early warning systems. The project provides a honey map which displays real-time virtualization attacks. Okay, so the concept of that is basically to let you know where there are attacks that are probable, where they are about to happen. Okay, I was thinking the link is up. You would have just seen it. It will now show us the HoneyNet example. Then we have the shared cyber intelligence. InfraGard is an example of a widespread sharing of cyber intelligence. All right, the InfraGard program is a partnership between the FBI and the private sector. All right, the participants are dedicated to sharing information and intelligence to prevent hostile attack. So you see, basically what we are saying here is that collaboration is the fastest and the key way you can be able to prevent yourselves or to update yourself or to become a very good cyber professional. All right, so here we can be they gather there is a partnership between FBI, that's the government of the United States, and the private sector, where they can share information as regards the attacks and how it happens and things like that. So they share this information. You can read it for yourself, just basically, but you need to register. You register, and once you register, if you belong to this particular group, then any cyber information, any threat that has happened, any new threat that is ongoing, you tend to see it. All right. The next one is the ISM standard. All right. The ISO and IEC 27000 standards are an example of the information security management standard. The standard provides a framework for implementing cybersecurity measures within an organization. So if you work within an organization, you need to know some of these standards so that the kind of devices you set up, the kind of policies that you make, the kind of services that you run on your organization, you should be able to be aware of this minimum standard so that you can protect yourself and protect your organization. So these are some of the standards that we are talking about. Like this particular standard is, it says this is the specification of an information security management system which placed the old BS 7799 standard, meaning that this particular standard, if you read it, for instance, if we open it, you see it will give us the details about it. This is the details about it here. You have to read it to get the entire details. So it will give you a guidance on how you can secure yourself or the minimum things you need to place in your network so that you don't fall victims. The new laws, all right? The Issachar group attacks tracks laws enacted related to cybersecurity. These laws can address individual privacy to protection of intellectual properties. All right. For example, example of these laws include the Cybersecurity Act of Federal Exchange, then the Data Breach Notification, then the Data Accountability and Trust. All right. So these are some of these new laws. So these are measures that we can take to thwart or to thwart the cyber attacks or criminals. Okay. Now, what are some of the common threats to end users of our network? As previously described, there are experts who are innovators and visionaries. They build the different cyber domains of the internet. They have the capacity to recognize the power of data and harness it. Then they build their organizations and provide services as well as protecting people from cyber attacks. Ideally, cybersecurity professionals should recognize the threat that data poses to it used against people. All right. So when a threat is the possibility that a harmful event, such an attack will occur. All right. So when a vulnerability makes a target susceptible to an attack. So these are some of the concerns or the situations that are very, very critical. You know, you need to ask yourself. All right. The example is that, for example, data in a wrong hand can result in a loss of privacy for true owners. All right. For the owners. Now, like just some days back, someone got in touch with me that my Facebook account has been hacked. And on a normal day, I say, okay, what did you do to let your Facebook account hack? And he told me that he was not very secure with his Facebook, and he gave some persons access to it to help log in and do some other stuff. But his concern is not the hacking of the Facebook, is the kind of information that his Facebook account will be used for. All right. And so he's afraid that Somebody who gain access to information, his information, can use it either to beg money or to commit a crime or whatever it is. So the information in the wrong hands can cause in a lot of harm for people. All right. So, what are the types of personal records that we need to protect so that we don't get it into the wrong hands? All right. We have a lot of them. We have the medical records, we have the employment data or records, you have your online information, you have your own identity, you have your educational data, you have your financial data. All right, and then you even have data on your computing devices. So all this data, all this information, they are very, 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 very sensitive. If somebody gains access to them, then you might find a lot of difficulty in regaining your self-esteem. For instance, if somebody gain access to your medical records, you can imagine the harm that it does. All right. You can expose some terminal diseases that you have. They can disqualify you for certain things that you are trying to hide and things like that. If somebody gain access to your financial information, that is obvious. You don't need to tell me how important that is. You just begin to see debit alert and you will wonder. Apart from that, somebody can gain access to that track and decide to cause you a lot of harm. All right. So we need to protect our data and information very, very well. All right. How about threats to internet services? There are many essential technical services need for a network and ultimately the internet. To operate these services include routing, addressing, domain naming, database management. These services also serve as a prime target to individuals. So if you are a network administrator in your organization, you need to pay this very, very attention, very serious attention, because the database services that you manage, the internet services that you manage, the email services that you manage, the DNS services that you manage, all those services that you manage, if somebody gains access to it, there is a problem. There is a threat, serious threat to that. All right. So criminals use packet sniffing tools to capture data streams over the network. This means that all sensitive data like username and passwords, credit cards, and numbers are at risk. All right. So these packet sniffing tools are just other applications that somebody can install on his system, then connect to your network, and then would begin to sniff all the transmission that users are carrying out. So if somebody is on your network and is trying to purchase something online, he will be vulnerable. If somebody is on your network and is trying to maybe register for an event, all the information will be made available. All right. Domain name service translates your domain name into the numerical IP addresses. Okay. So every device on a network, every device on the internet, every website, every device has an IP address. That IP address is a unique number. It's a unique number that identifies that device uniquely. So most of the times we use the domain name to be able to trace the IP address. For instance, this is what I mean. If I go to Google, let me show you this. I'm coming. Let me share this. All right. So for instance, I don't know whether you can see this. Okay. For instance, this is my command prompt. So if I go to pinggoogle.com, now google.com is the domain name. It's a domain name. So like if I come to my browser and then I just type google.com, if I come and I type google.com, all right, this is Google. So this name, this domain name is linked to a particular IP address. It's linked to a particular number. All right, that number actually identifies that device. So if I say google.com and I press enter, is the DNS, the domain name, is going to now resolve this particular domain name to the corresponding IP address that I have. Okay, for instance, if I say pinggoogle.com, all right, now, so look at it now. Once I have done this, it's going to tell me that the IP address of Google, this domain name, google.com, is what? 216.58.223.206. So the DNS service actually translates this domain name to this number. So you, the end user, you don't need to know this number. You don't need to cram this number. You have nothing to do with this number. All you just need to do is google.com. For instance, I can just come cisco.com. All right, cisco.com. If I do like this, it's going to tell me this is the IP address of the domain name cisco.com, 72.163.4.185. So this is the IP address. So the DNS service we are talking about here is that it translates this domain name to this particular IP address. So what would a cyber criminal do with this particular domain name and IP address? What it would do is, for instance, it can change this particular domain name to point to a different IP address. So maybe I come here, I want to browse cisco.com, and I type cisco.com, and instead of it to take me to cisco.com site, it will take me to a different site. Okay, so most of these cyber criminals, they also attack and they try to do all that. So threats to key industry sectors. What are the industry sectors that should also be very, very careful? The manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector, there's a lot of threats there. The energy sector, all right? The communication sector, the transportation sectors. The transportation sectors, where we talk about airlines and railway systems, and even these online booking systems. All right, you have Uber and car transport systems, where you have like Uber, you have OPay, you have Taxify, you have a lot of them. Okay, so all these transport systems that are online, there could be threats to them. Manufacturing sectors, the same thing, as well as energy sectors. So a cyber attack could bring down or interrupt industry sectors like telecommunication, transportation, or electrical power generation and distribution. So it could also interrupt the financial service sector. One of the problems with the environment is this. So banks, every now and then, they lose a lot of money to cyber threats. It's just that they don't announce it on news so that you don't get afraid. But every now and then, they lose money to cyber threat. There are individuals, you go to your mobile account, you want to transfer money, you transfer to somebody else, he doesn't see it, but you get a debit, and problems keep happening every day. So remember that we are looking at a world of experts and cyber criminals, and we are also looking at data, how important this data is. We are also we're looking at the organizations or the vulnerable areas that people are going to be attacked. All right. Now, threats to people's way of life. All right. Cybersecurity is the ongoing effort to protect network systems and data from unauthorized access. So on a personal level, everyone needs to safeguard his or her identity. Data and computing services at the corporate level is it is the employee's responsibility to protect the organization's reputation, data, and customers. At the state level, national security and the citizens' safety and well-being are at stake. All right. So you see, you and I have a very big responsibility to do when it comes to protecting data. All right, on your phone, on your laptop, on the desktop you use in in your organizations, because every day in our lives we are exposed to attacks. All right, we give him information, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. We give this information, but the most important thing is that if we know the threats that are always coming, then it will help us to be able to protect ourselves and our organizations from such threats. Okay. What about internal and external threats? All right. So attacks can originate from within the organization or from outside the organization. Now, look at this chart here. You have a cyber criminal. They either come from outside the organization or from inside. If they come from inside, they are either employees or ex-employees or contract staff or trusted partners. So it means that you have to be careful, all right, when it comes to inside, because that's the most deadly. When it comes from outside, they can either be hacktivists, organized hackers such as hacktivists, terrorists, or state sponsored. All right, or they can be hackers such as black hackers, gray hackers, or white hackers, or they might be amateurs. All right, so if there is an attack, it is either from outside or from inside. If it is from inside, it's either your current employees, your ex-employees, your contract staff, or trusted partners. If it is from outside, either organized hackers, or they are amateurs. All right. Corporate data includes personal information, intellectual property, and financial data. Personal information includes application materials, payrolls, offer letters, employee agreements, and any other information used in making employment decisions in your organization. So it is important to know that the hackers have every need of this data that you have in your custody. How about vulnerable devices? All right, vulnerabilities in devices. In the past, employees typically used company-based computers. All right, the company will provide the computers for you, and you are not to use any other computer apart from the one that the company has provided and has connected to your local area network. So administrators continually monitor and update these computers to meet security requirements. But today, the case is different. Mobile devices such as iPhones, smartphones, tablets, thousands of other devices are basically connecting to our devices, to our networks on a daily basis. And companies might not be able to be managing all these things. So they say, bring your own device. That is the trend that is ongoing. I bring my devices and I use them for my work. I use them for my studies. I use them in the hospital. So I can bring my phone and connect to the network. I can bring my laptop, my iPad, my desktop, whatever it is. The inability to centrally manage and update mobile devices poses a growing threat to organization, and that allows employee mobile. So in our organization, for instance, we now discovered, based on the devices that are connected at high peak, we noticed that 80%, 80 to 90% of the devices connected on the network are mobile devices. And so you cannot continue to limit people to just desktop or laptops or company provided devices, especially when you have large organizations like institutions. All right, so this can pose threats or vulnerabilities to the organization. The emergence of Internet of Things is another way that threats is being spread. You know, apart from your mobile devices that we have looked at, now this Internet of Things that we have, where every device is connected. Let's say you have a smart home. This is like a smart home here, and your bulb is connected to the network. Your shower is connected to the network. Your phone or your iPod is connected to the network. The fan in your house, the television in your house, the tap in your house, the phones in your house, everything in your house is connected to the network. So if you have this kind of smart home where you have everything connected, that means there's a lot of exchange of data. So this emergence of Internet of Things technology is also another thing that is posing a lot of high risk to this particular technology. Then another way in which threats are being spread is the impact of the big data. All right. When you're talking about big data, we're talking about how companies that harvest a lot of information. So big data is the result of data sets that are large and complex, making traditional data processing applications inadequate. Big data poses both challenges and opportunities based on three dimensions. One, the volume or the amount of data. Two, the velocity or speed of the data. And three, the variety or range of data types and resources. So there are resources that actually are required on the internet. So if I come to the network, to the internet generally, people use a lot of messaging application, chats. People have servers that host data. People send emails. People send statistics. People make calls. People browse the internet. People store information in the cloud. People travel, and the maps keeps track of your movement, and so on and so forth. So all these things are data, and this data, this is also a way that information is being spread. Now, how about this threat complexity? We have using these advanced weapons. Software's vulnerabilities today rely on programming mistakes, protocol vulnerabilities, or system misconfiguration. The cyber criminals merely has to exploit one of these. All right, there is a growing sophistication seen in cyber attacks today, because that is the in thing that is going. They get sophisticated, and programming that they do becomes more and more complex. An advanced persistent threat is a continuous computer hack that occurs under the radar against specific objects. So criminals usually choose an app or for business or political motives. So once they do that, they expose ourselves. They use those tools or weapons in order to launch an attack. All right. Algorithm attacks can track system self-reporting data, like how energy a computer is using, and use the information to select targets or trigger false alert. All right. So most of these tools that we are using, they are like weapons that the attackers can use in order to cause more harm. And basically, programmers, people who write soft codes, people who write source codes, they are the ones that actually cause this harm and makes it very, 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 very complex. Okay. Another complexity, apart from the programming complexity, is the broader scope and cascade effects. The broader scope and cascade effect. Now, federated identity management refers to multiple enterprises that let their users use the same identification credentials, gaining access to the network of all enterprises in the group. So this broadens the scope and increases the probability of a cascading effect should an attack occur. All right. So a federated identity links a subject's electronic identity across separate identity management system. For example, a subject may be able to log into Yahoo with Google or Facebook credentials. This is an example of a social login. The goal of federated identity management is to share identity information automatically across castle boundaries from individuals' users' perspective. This means a single sign-on to the web. So what we are saying here is another thing that causes complexity is that you have companies who have different services, different applications, and then the same login details is used to log into so many things. For instance, I have a Gmail. All right. So if I come to my Play Store, I will be using the same login details. If I want to check my email, I use the same login details. If I come to Google Classroom, I will use the same login details. All the applications that Google has, I will use the same login details. That is a single sign-on. All right. So I don't need to have a username and password for this, a username and password for that, a username and password. If I want to even use Picasa, the same thing, the username and password for this, a username, the same sign-on. Now, the federated identity is what we are talking about when you have this single sign-on of identity cutting across board. So I have a Google account. I will use that same Google account to create a Facebook account. All right. I will use the same Google account to log into another profile. So there are so many online tools now, online services, that if you want to log in, they will ask you log in with your Google account or log in with your Facebook account or log in with your LinkedIn account. Okay. So it is not a LinkedIn service. It's not a Facebook service. It's not a Google service. But because Google or Facebook or LinkedIn have shared that login database like an API. All right. For those of you who are in tertiary institutions, another federated account is like the Edu Room. When you have what we call the educational room in your organization, you are able to log into your internet services using a particular login details. All right. That same login details, if you travel maybe to another institution, all right, maybe in Lagos, then you'll be able to log into their own internet service with your own local login details. If you travel to US, for instance, to another tertiary institution and you see Edu Room, you will log into that same internet service without asking them for username and password. You will use your own local username and password. So you see, that is when you are using the federated identity. You are using the same login details to be able to access several resources across board. All right. Now, what are some of these safety implications that we need to take note? All right. The emergency call centers in US are vulnerable to attacks. All right. You could shut down 911. So if you shut down 911, you can imagine. In Nigeria, the one we have is what? 112. That's the one for road safety. So you can, if there's any emergency you have, you can just dial 112. Now, we are saying that these services can be shut down. All right. Network jeopardizing public safety. A telephone denial of service attack uses phone calls against a target phone network, trying to set up system and preventing legitimate calls from getting through. All right. So if I set up a denial of service, meaning that I will now hijack that system, I will keep that particular server or that particular system so busy, all right, that the legitimate calls or the legitimate services that are supposed to be accessed will not be able to be accessed. The people that are supposed to access it will not be able to access it. And that is one of the complexity. If somebody now launch a denial of service attack on your voice system, it will affect it negatively. All right. How about heightened of cybersecurity threat? Heightened of cybersecurity threat. The defense against cyber attacks at the part of the cyber era were low. A smart high school student or script kiddie could gain access to systems. Countries across the world have become more aware of the threat of cyber attacks. The threat posed by cyber attackers now head the list of greatest threats to national and economic security. So you can only imagine if somebody gains an attack to Forex and decide to make some attacks such that 1 naira will equal to maybe $300 or $500. 1 naira equals to $500. What do you think will happen? All right, you can only imagine what will happen. So the point we are saying is that these particular attackers actually create this world for themselves, and sometimes it's for malicious reasons, sometimes it's for security reasons. Now, what are some of these workspace that we have for cyber security? And one of it is addressing the shortage of cybersecurity specialists. All right, cybersecurity specialists. Now, and that is one of the reasons that some of you are taking this course. All right, the moment you get these foundations, what we are just doing is exposing ourselves to understand that there is a high need for this. So the national security cybersecurity workforce framework categorizes and describes cybersecurity work. It provides a common language that defines cybersecurity, working along with a common set of tasks. Okay, so here we are trying to say that there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of demand for cyber experts out there. How about the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework? All right, what does it do? What do we have there? We said that first, to operate and maintain. All right, this includes providing the support, administration, and maintenance required to ensure system performance and security. Is one of the 7 categories that we're looking at. The second one is to do what? Protect and defend, to include the identification, analysis, and mitigation of threats. All right, that is one of the things that we are supposed to do. One of the 7 that we are supposed to do. First is to what? Operate and maintain. We as what? Cybersecurity professionals. All right, you're supposed to what? Operate and maintain. All right, then 2, you're supposed to do what? Protect and defend. The third thing is to do what? Investigate, to include the investigation of cyber events and cyber crimes, including IT resources. All right. Then number 4, collect and operate, include specialized denial and deception. All right. Include specialized denial and deception operations and the collection of cybersecurity information. All right. Number 5, analyze, to include highly specialized review and evaluation of incoming security information to determine if it is useful for intelligence. Okay. Number 6, oversight and deployment, oversight and development, sorry, to provide for leadership, management, and direction to conduct cybersecurity work effectively. And then finally, securely provision to include conceptualizing, designing, and building of secure IT system. So within each of these categories, there are several specialty areas. The specialty areas then define common types of security work. So this is like the framework for cybersecurity professionals. You can pick each of these and then see how you can work towards that. All right. So we're almost coming to an end. Professional organizations, cybersecurity specialists must collaborate with professional colleagues frequently. All right, international technology organizations often sponsor workshops and conferences. These organizations often keep cybersecurity professionals inspired and motivated. So these are some of the cybersecurity organizations. You can have Z, the SANS, then the MITRE, then you have FIRST, then you have InfoSysSec, you have the ISC, so all these are cybersecurity organizations, and you are to join groups or collaborate with them, especially in the exchange of information. All right. So basically, this is the end of the class. The last part is industry certification. It is not good to only just study about or take these particular courses. It is also very good to get certified, to write exams, industry certification exams that will help you in your understanding and management of this particular course. And some of the industry certifications are the CompTIA Security Plus. You can write that one. CompTIA Security Plus. Then you have the EC Council. All right, you can write that one. Then you have the SANS GIS Security Essentials. Then now all this security, in fact, this is like for the ethical hackers. If you want to become ethical hackers, all these are security certifications that you can decide to professionalize in. And once you write these certifications, then you become an authority in the cybersecurity world. So you can do CCNA security, you can do cybersecurity essentials, then you write these certifications. You can do CCNA cybersecurity operations, and then you write the certifications. But the whole idea is that as a professional, you need to get certified. All right, you need to get certified. So that is that about today's class. So in summary, we have looked at chapter 1 of the cybersecurity, and this particular chapter exposes us. This chapter explained the structure of the cybersecurity world and the reasons that it continues to grow with data and information. Okay. This chapter also discussed the role of cyber criminals by examining what motivates them. All right, introduce the spread of threats due to ever expanding technical transformations that are taking place. And we also saw finally that the chapter explained how we can become cyber security specialists to help defeat the cyber criminals who develop the threats. So you see, the difference between a cybersecurity specialist and a criminal is the motive. All right, but in terms of technical know-how, we are expected to know the same thing. So the difference is basically the motive. So if you like to explore further concepts in this chapter, you can check out the additional resources and the activities we have in the class. So only those who are legitimate have been enrolled in the Cisco NetAcad class. So let me show you where how you can gain there. Feel free to also send in your questions via the chat group,